Good morning, everybody. The time is 10 o'clock. I'll call the June 5th, 2025 Planning Board meeting to order. We are joined virtually by Commissioner Giraldo. You're on mute, sir.
Muted. Good morning.
Good morning,
There we go.
Mr. Unmute.
You're a Commissioner Unmute and Commissioner Washington.
Good morning.
And I'm Chair Shapiro. Please note that the deadline for all participant pre-registration and for all submission materials and exhibits was 12 noon on the Tuesday before this planning board meeting, and staff can be of assistance if there are any technical issues. Madam Planning Board Administrator, any preliminary matters?
And today, sir.
Thank you. So we will take the order of cases in which they are listed on the agenda, and we'll start with item 2 on our agenda. Is there a motion to approve the draft minutes?
So moved.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington and a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Thank you, sir. With no discussion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. There are no legislative items on today's agenda. We will move to our consent agenda. Is there anyone from the public or any board member, commissioner who wishes to discuss any of the items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, after consideration of the record for item numbers 4A, D, 4A, 4D, 4E, and 4F, I move adoption of staff findings and approval of the items on the consent agenda in accordance with the recommendation of staff.
I think just to be clear, I believe that item 4D was removed from the consent agenda. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
So it's just 4A, E, and F?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So we've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. With no discussion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Move on to item 5 on our agenda, specific design plan SDP 8712-07 Collington Center, lot 29. This is an evidentiary hearing. Mr. Garvey will be representing the applicant. Mr. Cofield will be giving the staff presentation. And we will start, if there's anyone who needs to be sworn in, I will do so at the appropriate time, and we'll start with staff. Mr. Cofield.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Dexter Cofield with the Urban Design Section. Item number 5 is specific design plan SDP-8712-07 for Collington Center, Lot 29, Block B. This SDP proposes to amend SDP-8712 to develop a 25,103 square foot warehouse and office addition to an existing 40,800 square foot warehouse facility. Urban Design staff recommend that the Planning Board approves specific design plan SDP-8712-07, subject to the recommended conditions of approval within the technical staff report. Concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If there's no questions for staff, we'll turn to the applicant, Mr. Garvey.
Yeah, I believe Paul Woodburn was going to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, Mr. Woodburn.
Good morning, everyone. Trouble getting in. So appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully
Mr. Woodburn?
Okay. Yes, can you hear me okay?
Pardon my ignorance, are you a counsel? Are you an attorney?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just getting ready to tell you.
Because if not, I need to swear you in.
Yes, swear me in, please.
Okay, great. If you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you are under oath, sir, and take it away.
Morning, Paul Woodburn. I'm with the civil engineering firm of Atwell Inc. At 11721 Woodmore Road in Mitchellville, Maryland. And I'm here on behalf of the applicant to entertain any questions on the Collington Center Lot 29 Block B case, SDP 8712-07. I appreciate help and coordination with staff, and we accept on behalf of the applicant their recommendation for a small addition to an existing building. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have or staff.
Thank you, Mr. Woodburn. I appreciate it. Colleagues, any questions for the applicant on this item?
No.
No questions. We have nobody else who signed up to speak on this. Unless there's anything else from staff or the applicant, I will close the public hearing and turn to my colleagues for any deliberation and or action.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve SDP 8712 07 and TCP 2 067 96 14, subject to the condition as outlined in staff's report.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. With no discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye, Mr. Chair.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Cofield, Mr. Garvey, Mr. Woodburn.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Next, we'll move on to item 6 on our agenda. This is conceptual site plan CSP 07002-01 Sandsbury Crossing. Mr. Antonetti is representing the applicant. Mr. Meyerholtz will be giving a staff presentation. Again, this is a evidentiary hearing. If there's anyone else that's going to be signed up to speak, we'll swear them in at the appropriate time, and we will start with staff. Mr. Meyerholtz, good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Board. For the record, I am David Meyerholtz with the Open Design section. Item number 6 is conceptual site plan CSP-07002-01, which requests amendment to the approved CSP to remove condition 15 and revise condition 5D regarding drive-through facilities. No new development is proposed with this application. Next slide, please. The site is located in Planning Area 78, Council District 6. Next slide, please. More specifically, the site is located in the southeast quadrant of the intersection of Ritchie Marlborough Road and Sandsbury Road. Next slide, please. The subject property is zoned RMF 48, residential multifamily 48, but was formerly in the MXT zone. Next slide, please. This slide shows the site's topography as well as the additional residential development nearby. Next slide, please. This map shows the adjacent master planned rights-of-way, which include Ritchie Marlborough Road, an arterial, and the future MC-634, a major collector planned from Presidential Parkway to White House Road. Next slide, please. This enlarged aerial shows the surrounding development, including the Westphalia Row property to the west, and the development known as the Venue across Ritchie Marlborough Road to the north. The existing building on site is a Royal Farm. Next slide, please. The subject conceptual site plan does not propose any additional square footage on the property beyond the original approval. This slide shows the approved conceptual site plan, including the lots and interior drive aisle. The approved plans include 2 right-in, right-out access points on Ritchie Marlborough Road and 1 access point on Sandsbury Road. Next slide, please. The applicant specifically requests revisions to the original conditions of approval. First, a revision to condition 5D, which would remove the requirement for ordering kiosks to be integrated into the main building, the design of which would be reviewed at time of detailed site plan. Second, the applicant requests removal of condition 15, which prohibits drive-through facilities for restaurants on the subject property, citing potential access problems and other circulation issues. It should be noted that condition 15 was added during District Council's review of the case and was not included in resolution number 08-50 for the original CSP approval. Access, circulation, and conformance with the established trip cap will be further analyzed at time of DSP. Next slide, please. The site is located within a mixed-use activity center as defined by the Westphalia Sector Plan. The design principles include distinct, high-quality, walkable mixed-use commercial development areas with focal points and shared amenities. Drive-throughs are not exclusively prohibited in the subject area. However, extensive design attention is necessary to achieve the vision of the sector plan. Next slide, please. This slide shows an illustrative site plan that was included in the approved sectional map amendment for the Westphalia Sector Plan. 20,000 to 30,000 square feet of hotel and retail uses were envisioned for this site, with buildings close to Ritchie Marlborough Road right of way. Next slide, please. Given the applicant's request to remove prior conditions of approval to allow for drive-through uses on the site, staff recommend condition 2, which provide that any use with a drive-through service should be subject to additional standards to provide pedestrian accommodations and a mixed-use walkable environment as outlined in the sector plan. Prior to the noon deadline on June 3rd, 2025, the applicant submitted additional material known as Applicant's Exhibits 1, 2, and 3. Applicant's Exhibit 1 is a letter of support for this application from the Little Washington Civic Association. Applicant's Exhibit 2 is a letter of support for the application from the Greater Morningstar Apostolic Ministries, the neighboring property owner to the north. Both letters cite support for drive-through service as a feature with this development. Applicant's Exhibit 3 requests the revision to condition 2, limiting the condition to restaurant uses with drive-through service. The requested revision is shown in blue on this current slide. Staff recommends retaining the condition as is to apply to all uses with drive-through service. The recommendations presented in the technical staff report provide emphasis on pedestrians in accordance with the Westphalia Sector Plan design guidelines for development of the sites included in the CSP, rather than vehicular-oriented development, not necessarily just drive-through service for eating and drinking establishment. Next slide, please. Based on this evaluation and analysis, urban design staff recommend that the planning board adopt the findings of this report and approve conceptual site plan CSP-07002-01, subject to the recommended conditions of approval within the technical staff report. This concludes staff's presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marholz. Colleagues, questions for staff at this point?
Clarifying question, Mr. Harmahut, with regards to the proposed condition revisions you spoke to on slide 9, are you in agreement with those?
We're not. Staff would recommend that the revision or that the conditions remain applicable to all uses with a drive-through service.
Let me follow up on that too. Talk a little bit about the rationale for why that's your approach.
Drive-through uses are inherently vehicular oriented, and the goals for this site within the Westphalia Sector Plan are for walkable, mixed-use, medium to high-density development. And the vehicular orientation of drive-through uses can hinder those goals.
And it sounds like you're saying you can have a drive-through, but with sort of strict limitations.
With additional standards, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Commissioner Giraldo, any questions from you? You're on mute, sir.
And for this is for pedestrian safety, is that correct? And to keep in line with the mixed use nature of the development.
That's accurate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no more questions for staff, let's turn to the applicant, Mr. Antonetti. And if there are other folks who want to speak, of course, we'll swear them in at the appropriate time.
Very professional, highly communicative with the applicant, and that is so very appreciated. With that, I would also express that the applicant is largely agreement with the staff's findings and recommendations. I've had the blessing to represent this project for over 19 years. I was here in 2006 when the Westphalia Sector Plan was being debated, formulated, discussed. So were the Addisons and their partner, Mr. Herring. And in 2007, it was rezoned to the MXT zone. And as part of the Westphalia Sector Plan, it was designated as a mixed-use activity area. This property as part of the overall MXT, including there was the townhouses plan left that you see here, and there's undeveloped land immediately to the south of the red outline that you see before you. That altogether was the mixed use area, the MXT for this gateway. This property was the retail component of that gateway. Also under the MXT zone, it's a unique thing only to Westphalia that you can actually have just one use in the mixed use zone, MXT zone, as opposed to the 2 out of 3 normally required in the zone. But nonetheless, this represents residential, commercial, and a future main street to the south where the church property is located. And that road running between the townhouses and this property is Sandsbury Road. That will be the main street because the design guidelines in the sector plan specifically reference a main street not being more than 2 lanes. And the only opportunity for that is Sandsbury Road. Where this property fronts, particularly undeveloped portions, lots 2 and 3, that is an arterial. That's Ritchie Marlborough Road. That's a 6-lane roadway that has probably in excess of 32,000 average daily trips running across it. So there's a lot of vehicles running to it. Just farther to the west is the roundabout access point to the Capitol Beltway, which has 230,000 daily trips. The uses contemplated on this site are largely going to be retail service oriented for pass-by vehicle trips. I appreciate the staff's comments regarding pedestrian accommodation and pedestrian orientation. The actual sector plan doesn't require that this be pedestrian only or pedestrian mainly focused. It requires in the guidelines pedestrian accommodation. That's also reflected in the staff report. What is pedestrian accommodation? Pedestrian accommodation can come in multiple forms. It can come in crosswalks, sidewalks, pedestrian refuge areas, seating areas, things of that nature, which you've seen in other applications. What's important here is we're at CSP. There are other applications that come after this. A detailed site plan is the next thing that would come before this board. And we would welcome the opportunity to show you, one, that we have an interested party in these and remaining 2 parcels, but that we can also make that pedestrian accommodation in accordance with the guidelines. In the spirit of compromise, we have accepted the condition 2 largely, particularly with restaurants. The condition with restaurants in the condition 15 in the current CSP, limiting drive-through service, actually prohibiting drive-through services, only applies to restaurants. I think the current description more accurately would be eating and drinking establishment. Apologize for that, but I tried to keep the vernacular the same and with the current condition, which says restaurant, but I'm okay with either one. I think they're interchangeable. But nonetheless, that condition was placed with the caveat that it was needed for access and circulation issues. We've provided transportation information to show that there really is no access or circulation issues as this site has developed, as was mentioned in the condition 15 that we're asking to be deleted. Again, in the spirit of compromise, we were willing to accept condition 2 largely, but we want it limited to restaurants or eating and drinking establishments. We will accept that it is likely or possible that a drive-through for a restaurant may have a different character in terms of intensity or use than perhaps other drive-through for other uses. For example, we have a prospective user for lot 2. It is a Dunkin' store that is coffee and donuts. It is largely meant to accommodate people that want their coffee and donut in the morning or in the evening, and they will want a drive-through. And this allows for that to happen. But on lot 3, which is farthest plan right, you don't have a user for that. And it could be a variety of uses that might require a drive-through. For example, we could have a bank that comes through and wants to locate on this site. Typically a bank wants 2 or more drive-through lanes. They may want a human teller lane and they may want an ATM lane to service the automobile customers that don't want to get out of their car, which is the predominant preference or a very significant preference in the retail market today post-COVID-19 to be able to service the needs of tenants. The whole purpose of this application was to liberalize the conceptual site plan to help the Addisons and their partners finish this site. It's been 17 years. It's been graded, it's ready to go, and has excellent location. It's on a major arterial right next to an even more significant freeway in the Capital Beltway. They still struggle to develop lots 2 and 3. We don't want to liberalize or provide relief to allow a restaurant to have a single drive-through, which we're willing to accept. At the same time, tie our hands again to limit our ability to lease to another tenant on lot 3 that may want more than one that isn't a restaurant. Again, a bank, perhaps a dry cleaner, perhaps a drugstore. I will tell you that the lot that has developed with the Royal Farms store and gas fueling location has done incredibly well. It has 16 fueling positions. It has a store. It is wildly popular because there's such an absence of retail amenities in this immediate area. And we met with the Little Washington Civic Association. We've communicated and connected with the Greater Morningstar Apostolic Church, and they're in support of this. Their letters are evidence of that. In fact, one of the only questions, more popular questions I get when I reach out to the community is, are we also, if Dunkin' is coming, because we talked about that too, or are we going to have the 31 flavors with it? Because Baskin apparently, Robbins couples with Dunkin' quite frequently. So there's an expectation and a need, a pent-up demand. What we're asking for, we feel, is quite reasonable. That while we will accept the staff's condition, we don't want the ability to have more than one drive-through position for other uses other than a restaurant, because we've struggled so mightily to attract folks to this site. And we think that they can be designed in a very reasonable, aesthetically pleasing, and safe and efficient manner. And we can demonstrate that at detailed site plan, which we want the opportunity to do. So essentially, that's what I'm asking for. If you can trust us to come back to you with something that shows that we make the pedestrian accommodation that the design guidelines and the sector plan encourage, that we can move past this issue and then again bring a viable tenant that will service the retail and service needs of the community. And I will say the most important overarching policy for the sector plan is policy 4 for activity centers. It states to promote development of 6 distinct mixed-use activity areas with residential, retail, service, and employment components to service the area's neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods are going to access this site overwhelmingly by automobile. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't protect and provide accommodation for pedestrians at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. And that's the opportunity we're asking for with this change. So I have members of our team here that can speak to any of the technical aspects. I will mention we provided transportation information with this from Mr. Lenhart's team that shows that for the Dunkin' use and for this operation on 2 and 3, if you have a drive-through, that you're still going to have the same amount of vehicles coming into the site if you didn't have a drive-through. That you're still going to have vehicles coming in. That's just the nature of this location and the retail service aspect of this. Most people are not walking to this site, but once they're on the site, they should have the ability to walk safely and have accommodation on it to go between lots 1, 2, and 3. And we believe that strongly that we can and will provide that and demonstrate that at detailed site plan. With that, I greatly appreciate you allowing me to prattle on this, but we feel it's really vitally important. We don't want to liberalize the conditions to allow for this site to develop, yet at the same time restrict us further for other users, increasing our challenges in leasing this site. So with that, I would respectfully request your support of our recommended condition. Again, I'm open to it to be restaurant or eating and drinking establishment. Actually, I might recommend, not to overcomplicate it, but on condition 2A, perhaps we can insert restaurant or eating and drinking establishment there, because the 2B and 2C, we're fine with. We think anything with a drive-through should provide accommodation per the guidelines for pedestrians, and it will anyway. You don't even have to say it necessarily because it's a requirement for this zone and for the West Bayou sector. But we definitely just want to make sure that the limit to 1 lane is to restaurant only, so we can have a successful development on the remaining areas undeveloped on this project. So with that, our team is here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your indulgence, and I appreciate your favorable consideration of this application.
Thank you. So let's open this up for questions, comments, thoughts.
Yeah, I'm particularly struck by or I appreciate your example of the bank. And so I would respectfully ask staff to respond to that because clearly a bank has more than one like queuing lane. So what are your thoughts on that? And I guess Mr. Antonetti's proposed accommodation with regards to 2A.
Yes, certainly. And as we've seen across the county, banks often do development, just as the applicant has stated. The original approval, though, would have required that banks with drive-throughs, which would not be prohibited by condition 15, would have to incorporate the canopy, the kiosk, and the drive-through window into the building visually and design-wise. We believe that that would have limited banks to have fewer drive-through lanes, and that in doing so, the balance of the site could be dedicated more to achieving the walkability and the medium to high density uses that were envisioned with the sector plan.
Not sure that answers my question.
Certainly. We believe that adding more drive-through lanes takes more of the site away from pedestrians.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm saying the way the condition is, the way it reads, if I'm understanding it correctly, it limits to one drive-through per establishment. Clearly, a bank does not fit that model if they have drive-throughs, because you're going to have at least one teller drive-through and likely one ATM drive-through. So at minimum, two. So that would preclude a bank from coming onto that third site.
Potentially, yes.
Right. I mean, I don't know why we would want to do that.
If I may, Sherry Connor,
May.
the record, the Development Review Division. The applicant would have, as they stated, they've been looking for tenants for over the last 17 years. They could have that use right now, and they haven't gotten it, right? So, we don't find that, anything that is conditioned right now has precluded them from seeking out a bank tenant, or that the design conditions in place or the proposed would prohibit that either. There are banks that have walk-up ATM that encourage the pedestrian interaction for that and the one drive-through lane. There are other design considerations that can accommodate a multiple user. It may not be their standard design, but in high density mixed use places, we want to see these typical models adjusting their model to accommodate the pedestrian realm, not their typical model that they would have in a high vehicle oriented area.
I appreciate that. I guess I'm just generally opposed to limiting the kinds of development that can come in, and especially being familiar with this area. It's high traffic, it's high vehicular. And I'm not suggesting that I don't want to encourage pedestrian, but I'm not a transportation expert, but it's probably going to be 95/5, 90/10 in terms of walkability versus vehicle. So I'll just stop there and maybe others have comments. So.
Yeah. Commissioner.
Certainly not our intent to, apply limitations to specific uses either, right? And I think that's what Mr. Meyerholtz was getting at, is that a drive-through is a drive-through, right? Regardless of the use that it's attached to. Some, to Mr. Antonetti's point, might be more high volume than others. A bank might generate, less trips. A pharmacy might generate just as many as fast food. And so that was really staff's intent in drafting this, that it didn't seek to single out single users.
Could I add to that, if possible? I'm sorry. This site has a condition on its CSP right now where the planning board at detailed site plan can amend the design guidelines relative to the type of drive-through, the integration of an ordering window that was for a restaurant or a kiosk. can deviate from that at time of detailed site plan. That exists today. So we could have had a bank that came through and said, hey, yeah, we want 2 lanes or 3 lanes, and here's how it works, and here's how the pedestrian accommodation. Well, unfortunately, that hasn't happened. One reason why that hasn't happened is because lot 2, which is the smaller of the 2 remaining lots, is a narrower lot, which is more conducive to a restaurant use. And that would remain vacant. Lot 3, it's just a shared access point. So you kind of have to finish it in sequence, 1, 2, and 3. It makes 3 less desirable for a bank or a drugstore unless 2 is coming online. So, and the retail market obviously has taken an incredible hit since COVID. So in terms of trying to predict the market of, well, we could have had it, but we didn't. We want it now. And we want to make sure we set ourselves up for the opportunity to get it by having the most common sense approach. I will mention one more thing, and I wish Ms. Bailey was here, because many years ago, on another gateway in the sector plan in the south for a project called Forks of the Road, we had a similar interaction with staff, not this staff, but not as good as this staff, but another version of the staff, where there was a pushback on allowing a fueling and convenience food and beverage store at the corner of Ritchie Marlboro Road and Old Marlboro Pike. And the question was, well, this wouldn't be attractive. It wouldn't accommodate the service needs in an attractive way, and it would interfere with pedestrian accommodation. And we argued, no, we need the opportunity. We can design a beautiful building that is attractive, that is accessible on all fronts. And ultimately, the board sided with the applicant and agreed to allow that restriction, which the board staff was advocating for, to be taken out of the conceptual site plan. And but I remember in the vote, Ms. Bailey turned to me and said, Mr. Antonetti, in explaining my vote, he goes, I think you deserve the opportunity, your client does, to propose something that is beautiful and that works on the corner if such a use develops. However, when you come back to detailed site plan, this better be the best looking gas station on earth. And I remember that, and I walked out and I said, guys, it better be the best looking gas station on earth. What happened? Today, we actually have a Royal Farm store, a beautiful one with a beautiful entry feature for Westphalia, and it is widely successful and popular. Nobody would say that didn't work. We want the same opportunity here. You never know what the market's going to yield, but to have the opportunity makes all the difference, and that's the relief we're asking for. So thank you. I'm sorry for that long answer, but thank you for the accommodation.
Just a question based on what you said too, that because I heard you just say that that you're comfortable with the condition that would allow us to review this at detailed site plan. I wasn't quite getting what you were saying.
Yes.
I actually thought that's something that you were requesting would be changed.
No, we're not asking for that to be changed. I was just responding to Ms. Connor's point that, and I think Mr. Meyerholz were there saying that if you look at the guidelines on the CSP today regarding the integration of a canopy or a kiosk with a main building, that would necessarily limit you to one drive-through lane, which isn't absolutely true. But what I think it forgets is that in that condition in the beginning, it says it essentially, I'm paraphrasing, a detailed site plan, the board can modify those standards based on at the time of detailed site plan if it finds essentially that there's grounds for that. So we could have actually had a bank.
You're not objecting to that?
No, we're not. I just wanted to point out that, what's in the CSP today didn't automatically restrict this site to just one lane. It didn't, because we could have come back a detailed site plan for other uses other than a restaurant, where the restriction was placed on. We could have come with 2 lanes for a bank or a drugstore, et cetera. So if nothing changed today, we could still have that use and with multiple lanes. With this condition too, we can't. So we don't want to go backwards. We want to, again, have the best opportunities to come with you with a quality project.
I think that, the dilemma for me around this is the desire to have some kind of town center style development that is highly walkable. And, that's an amenity that I think the community would really benefit from. I'm just trying to get my head around whether that's the reality for this area, that it's not going to be black or white, but how feasible is that given that location, given the high traffic? And again, I don't think it's black and white. So, what are the reasonable accommodations here that allows enough flexibility, but still moves us in the direction that we want to be moved? You know, that, you know, perhaps your clients have thoughts about that, but, you know, at some level, are we looking at a more traditionally suburban style development? Or are we looking at something that's a little bit more urban and, you know, town center oriented?
Well, we have thought about it. And the answer is, yes to all of it. You know, you can make it, you can heighten the architectural detail. You can heighten the pedestrian accommodation, the landscaping, other things to make it better than what a normal suburban only location is here. But you're also faced with the stark reality that this is on the fringe. This is a gateway. This isn't the town center. That this is overwhelmingly accessed by vehicles. So you can give it the aesthetic and the appearance and show that at detailed site plan, which is what we're advocating for. At the same time, actually meet the usable needs so this site is attractive and successful for the majority of patrons that are coming by vehicle. But it doesn't preclude the ability for people to come by foot. I argue that the people that are going to be walking here, overwhelmingly, if they're walking, are going to be walking from, say, the Royal Farms position to the second position to the bank, and they should be able to navigate that safely with, you know, with nice pedestrian accommodations, which is the aesthetic. I think I'm certain we're going to hit that at time of detailed site.
And/or the townhomes.
And/or the townhomes, but we were talking about that before we came up here, and even then, I think the majority of people from the townhomes will probably drive over and then come back. But yes, I think the townhomes are also probably the secondary access point.
I think this is the crux of it, right? Because I think the way this is envisioned, designed, and if I lived in those townhomes, I probably would drive, unless there was a different design. Unless if it was not just pedestrian accommodations, but if there was a sort of a general development pattern of walkability.
And that's already developing. There's an 8-foot sidewalk around the perimeter of this site, just for example. So when you cross the street, you walk into a very wide sidewalk just as soon as you get onto the site. And then when you get onto the site, particularly for lots 2 and 3, you absolutely can have connecting sidewalks, you know, of an adequate width, probably 6 feet, coming down into each particular use, and also have crosswalks strategically placed with, you know, ADA ramps going through the site too at the same time, so you can walk horizontally across 1, 2, and 3.
So you're advocating for us to actually take that on at detailed site plan?
Yes. That's a chance. We need help here.
So, the shadow side of this, if we accommodate this, allow the flexibility, the bit of flexibility you're looking for, you know, you're painting a picture of the kinds of optimal uses here. My concern is it actually opens the door to some much more suboptimal uses as well. And how do we take that into account?
Well, you know, detailed site plan doesn't approve the use, right? The zone does. I will say, anecdotally, talking about the help, you know, this property was rezoned from MXT commercial to the RMF 48 zone. So, you know, in the new zone, it's for residential multifamily 48. And, you know, we're trying to, you know, develop using the prior ordinance deliberately so we can, you know, come out of the ground with uses that were contemplated in that MXT zone. But I will say, the Addisons, they're going to be the ground landlords for this site. They're local gentlemen. They work right down the road. They come right up when something's with the Royal Farms, if there's something out of sorts and they hear a complaint. They are there. They are local. They are on scene. They want quality. This represents them, their
They just
family.
wanted Baskin Robbins. I think that's what you said. They said like,
No, that's what the community, that was what the community was asking for, because they need retail amenities. There's just not enough. You have to go up the Beltway or through the intersection or go up to Largo. There just isn't that convenience service, which is the policy of the sector plan. So I do think we can hit it with the design. I think the guidelines in condition 2 as modified by staff's recommendation, by applicant's recommendation, really help move you forward in that direction. And at time of detailed site plan, you can hold me to account if unless I get fired because I don't get this results. You can hold me to account, and that will show you that quality. As Ms. Bailey asked me many years ago, you know, we're going to bring quality, and it's going to be successful, but we need your help.
let me ask staff, is there a middle ground to the middle ground here? Mr. Meyerholtz, is there a way to sort of can we ask them to proffer something that's going to give us even a little bit more control of this when we get to detailed site plan? Because I don't know where my colleagues are. I'm inclined to sort of give them a little bit more flexibility on this.
And if I could augment before you respond, Mr. Antonetti spoke to condition 2A, perhaps in making an adjustment there with regards to eating and establishment, just.
Mr. Antonetti discussed that with staff previously as well, and, essentially what that would do is limit the one or the one lane limitation would be only for eating and drinking establishments. One of the things that Mr. Antonetti mentioned is that at the time of detailed site plan, the board could make a decision to amend the CSP through the DSP. There is a provision in the ordinance to do that. And so if they did come forward at the time of DSP with a design that, knocked your socks off, you could make the decision at that time to amend the condition of the CSP.
There's some flexibility. Laura, maybe you might have some thoughts about this too.
Explained what Sherry just said. So Sherry is saying you can go with staff's recommendation now, which would limit 2-lane drive-throughs, prohibit 2-lane drive-throughs for any use. However, if Mr. Antonetti and his clients returned with a design with a 2-lane drive-through at DSP, and that showed that it could be accommodated in a way that meets the walkable mixed-use character of the activity center in which this property is located, then you could remove that prohibition for that use because you're able to amend CSP conditions at the time of DSP. So it's not your only time you can take this.
No, that's helpful. I mean, the one thing though, because I wonder if there's a way to flip that around. I imagine they would want this because partly is maybe, well, I don't want to speak for them. I imagine that it can be harder to attract the kind of tenants you want if that condition is in there. If we can flip it around and say, we're okay with this, but know that we may choose to revisit this conceptual site plan at times of detailed site plan if we don't like the way they're doing it. Do you have
I appreciate, for the rationale there, absolutely. If you're trying to attract a tenant and say, it's already says you can't have this, but you can come and ask for.
That's what I'm thinking. Is that problematic?
That is very problematic.
That's why I'm thinking, can we flip that around but still have the same effect?
I think the draft condition has that effect already, or the recommended 2C. The site shall be designed with an emphasis on pedestrian accommodations as provided in page.
But pedestrian accommodations is, for what it's worth, is kind of weaker language for me because we were looking at general walkability.
It references page 30, which in the book is actually a list of things that it goes. I think by directing you to page 30, then you pick up all the things, but it didn't state it all. But design sidewalks on page 30, provide high levels of pedestrian accommodation, safety, and amenity. Design sidewalks no less than 6 feet in width.
Where are you?
I'm sorry, I'm on page 30 of the Westphalia sector plan.
Which column are you referencing?
I'm in the middle column.
Okay.
If you see under the last large square bullet point, it's all those things that that run underneath it, which it's everything that you're looking for. And
you're referencing this bullet right here.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Was the intent of the condition.
That is the intent. So that you're absolutely fine with. Okay. So then this question around, and Laura, I think, I look at this through the legal lens. It sounds like the condition that they're proffering might lead us in the same place. It's just, I'm confused. I want to give them enough flexibility, but at the end of the day, I want us to be able to still have the control around this at this detailed site plan.
But what you're asking is a little bit more complex of a question. It's if the board could sua sponte revert the CSP condition to what staff is now recommending if the applicant comes forward with a plan for a 2-lane drive-through that's unacceptable to the board. out, I am unsure what the board's ability, if the applicant isn't requesting a CSP amendment for the board to amend the CSP, I don't believe that is strictly possible.
But that's
So
why
that's
the-
kind of,
I go back to the amending 2A to be specific to eating and drinking establishments and singular lane. That does not, question, that does not impact anyway in terms of attracting additional tenants, does it?
If you make that change and 2C invokes that page 30.
Right.
Yeah, it still says for all drive-throughs, for any use. And then a detailed site plan, if there is a, valid, affirmable concern about pedestrian, access accommodation as defined by, in great detail on page 30, that we can have that discussion at detailed site plan. But I'm certain that they're not mutually exclusive, that the on-wheel accommodation and the pedestrian accommodation can't coexist. So
Ms. Connor, Mr. Meyerholtz, help us out a bit here. I mean, first of all, I appreciate the integrity of the position that you all have taken 100%. But I think you hear the direction where we're going and looking for a little bit more flexibility around this. But I want you all to help us think through something that we're not either missing or that is going to make sense to you all too. So is there a hint more of a compromise that we can find here? And again, I'm asking you to staff us, which is separate from the staff position.
Yeah, so I would suggest for condition 2A, the board might consider adding to the end of that unless modified by the planning board at the time of detailed site plan.
That feels like I think that gets to Laura, your issue. That sort of is essentially a proffer from the applicant that they recognize that we may be taking this up at the time of DSP.
right. I think a little bit more clarity, Sherry, for what you're suggesting is that the unless modified at detailed site plan is the intent to have that modifiable for only the bank users or bank and eating or the
All users for,
users. So even a restaurant or rather eating and drinking establishment could also have it modified to 2 lanes because that language would allow for that.
yeah, so right now the condition restricts all users to 1 lane for drive-through. But, and staff's position was that we didn't recommend that you single out specific users. In that same thread, you might consider allowing modifications to all uses. Or if you had concerns relative to eating and drinking establishments, particularly, you could say that for uses other than eating and drinking establishments, the board may modify at the time of detail.
Read again, please, the unless modified, what did you say?
Unless modified by the planning board at the time of detailed site plan.
Okay. Mr. Antonetti?
Because that's a broader, I think that's right, because that means a DSP, we can make whatever modifications we want.
To the 1 lane restriction for drive-throughs. And, the other option to that, particular to eating and drinking, would be unless modified for uses other than eating and drinking establishments by the planning board at the time of detailed site plan.
You're saying we should add that language or?
That depends on the board's intent with this condition. If the board wants to provide flexibility.
Can you hear her? You can? Okay, you're fine.
Not enough, okay. And I still got louder, okay. All right, so if the board wants to provide the flexibility to have 2 drive-throughs for all uses and to be agnostic as to whether the use is a restaurant or rather eating and drinking establishment, keep doing that. Then the staff's initial suggestion is what you would go with, which would just be to have condition 2A as written and to tack on unless modified by the planning board at the time of detailed site plan. However, if the board feels that the prohibition on a 2-lane drive-through for eating and drinking establishments should stay regardless because of the additional intensity that Mr. Antonetti referenced in his remarks, then the tack on at the end would read, unless modified by the planning board at the time of detailed site plan for uses other than an eating and drinking establishment. And that would clarify that they can't have 2 lanes if it's an eating and drinking establishment, but they can, with good design characteristics, have it for the bank or the drug store, whichever other use would entail a drive-through. So those are the options, and that's for the board to discuss what would best promote the goals of the master plan for the walkable mixed-use area.
It seems like not including the specifics give us the most flexibility.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Most flexibility, knowing that we have a fair degree of authority to do something about this with detailed site plan if we don't like the design that's coming forward.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question for Ms. Tellerico. So when it says unless modified, what does modified mean?
Commissioner Giraldo, modified in this instance means that the board would have the ability to do something different from what the condition says. So this condition, as written, limits them to a single drive-through lane. The board, adding unless modified by the board, allows the board to decide that 2 lanes, 3 lanes, I don't know if they go up to 4 lanes, are acceptable for any user.
So we have the power to do that at the detailed site plan?
Yeah, it's kind of, it puts it in a posture that 1 lane is preferred unless the applicant shows the board that 2 lanes or more would be acceptable.
Mhm.
Okay.
So my bottom line question is, so then we would have the authority to modify it to say, no, 1 lane and that's it. That's what I want to make sure. Because
That's
my
correct.
position
That's
is
correct,
I
yeah.
kind of agree with the staff. And I'm sure Mr. Antonetti made all of these arguments to staff going back and forth, and staff still felt that to be consistent with this neighborhood and with the idea of making it more walkable, that the 1 lane was sufficient. With regards to the bank, everything that I've read, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Finance, is that banks are getting away from their buildings. They're closing them up. So I'm just thinking, what else would go there that would need 2 lanes or 3 lanes? So I'm kind of
I
hard
don't
pressed.
know.
And I trust our staff. I trust Ms. Connor. And I'm sure they looked at this in all ways. I just want to be clear that when it gets to the specific design plan, if we say, no, that's not going to work, that'll hold up.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's what we're trying to accomplish. I just don't know. I don't want, look, we're not the ones selling the land. Okay. This makes clear that our preference is 1 drive-through. But if we decide we want to allow something other than that, we have that opportunity at DSP.
Right. I mean, the maximum flexibility is what I'm most focused on.
And I agree.
So, okay. So Ms. Connor, Mr. Meyerholz, thoughts, reactions? Are we missing something?
No, I think you have all the information. We don't
Okay.
have anything else to add.
All right. Mr. Antonetti.
I appreciate Ms. Tellerico's thoughts. I like sua sponte. I like agnostic. Those are good words. I like the words on your first option as well. I think, yeah, I mean, if the expectation is 1 and we have the opportunity and flexibility at your discretion to go to 2, I think the first option is highly preferred. I appreciate your accommodation. And with regards to the banks, Mr. Giraldo, I would hope that they just haven't found the right site yet. And maybe this could be the site for them to locate. But I think what's suggested provides the help that we so desperately need to finish off this this portion of the gateway. So thank you for your consideration. If that is acceptable, we would accept that as well. The first option, not specifying the use.
Okay. Good enough?
Good.
Ms. Tellerico, anything else from you?
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. All right, so is there any other folks who signed up to speak on this? Any other questions for staff or the applicant? No, so I will close this public hearing and turn to my colleagues for deliberation and or any action.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve CSP 07002 01, subject to the two conditions as outlined in staff's report, with one revision to condition 2A, which shall now read as follows. Notwithstanding adequate queuing shall be provided, only one ordering queuing lane shall be permitted per establishment with drive-through service, comma, unless modified by the planning board at the time of DSP, period.
Wow, that sounded pretty thorough. Do we need to throw the word sua sponte in there anywhere for fun? Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Second,
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo, with no discussion. Let me just say I appreciate the robust conversation. Thank you, staff, for all of your help, guidance, integrity, and also advice. So, with that, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you all. We will now move on to item 7 on our agenda. This is Countywide Planning Division, MRF, mandatory referral, MRF 2025-03, Parker's Place Solar. This is a public hearing, not an evidentiary hearing. We have Ms. Walker who will be giving a staff presentation. Mr. Thurman is representing the applicant. And we will start with staff. Good morning, Ms. Walker.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. For the record, my name is Tania Walker with the Special Projects section. Item number 7 is mandatory referral MRF 2025-003 for Parker's Place Community Solar. The applicant proposes to construct 3 solar arrays totaling 8 acres on a approximately 24-acre parcel to include a 7-foot tall chain link fence. The northern solar array will be accessed from an existing gravel driveway that's located along the northbound lanes of US 301, approximately 400 feet south of its intersection with Leland Road. And the center and southern solar arrays will be accessed along an existing driveway located along the northbound lanes of US 301, approximately 900 feet south of its intersection with Leland Road, with a turnaround at the end of the northern driveway. The project is in an agricultural and preservation zone, so the applicant proposes to plant and maintain herbaceous cover with pollinator value as a dual use to satisfy the solar energy system guideline requirement for mandatory referral cases. Staff recommends that the planning board adopt the recommendation and transmit them to the applicant. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Walker.
Thank you.
Questions for staff? Yes.
I have a question. Can you tell me about the soil that this solar array is going to be on?
You know?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if that was to.
So it was directed to staff, and I'm wondering, Commissioner Giraldo, if the applicant may be able to answer that as well.
Okay, that's fine. And the other thing, Mr. Chair, I think it's time that we review the guidelines again. This idea of the planting the herbaceous, especially on if the soil is agricultural, I hate to see it keep losing it in the county for 20 years.
All right, we have staff who can address that issue. I think there's some, I'm 100% in agreement with you, and I think staff is already moving down this road. There's all sorts of discussion at the local level and the state level around this. So maybe we can hear from staff a little bit around where we are in this policy development around solar.
For the record, James Hunt with the Planning Director's Office. I just wanted to kind of clarify that the Planning Department staff is coordinating with our legal counsel here regarding next steps within the mandatory referral process related to the solar. We do realize that on a state level, that has definitely been a talk of conversation. And so what we're trying to ensure is happening is that our policies here within Prince George's County are in alignment with the state policies. And as a part of that process, we are analyzing those different procedures that we do have to ensure that we're thinking about this and innovatively, taking on best practices throughout the country on what this looks like. So as a part of the different uses, how to reuse these different sites, we are looking at that and taking that into consideration at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Absolutely.
If you can, building on Commissioner Giraldo, I think this is an opportunity for the board to be involved in this discussion with staff. So if there's a way to, at the appropriate time, to engage us with some kind of a presentation and open up a discussion with us too around what we think makes the most sense from a policy perspective.
Absolutely. Staff will definitely be interested in providing that briefing to you all. We're having that further discussion a little bit later.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. All right, there's no more questions from Mr. Walker, but there was a question about the soil, status of the soil. Yes.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. For the record, this is Mark Chu with the Environmental Planning Section. I'm trying to find the exact parts of the report, but I know that there were a couple of soils that were of state concern, as well as I think one that was considered agricultural significance within the state. So those were the soil types that were there. So the solar panels are in fact located on there, and the soil specifically, sorry, thank you, Laura, are statewide importance, which is MNC. Prime farmland soils were MNB and MOB, and they were also classed, I guess, between 4 through 8, which are considered suitable for agricultural use, and the panels are situated on them. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, and it was just to show that in terms of why I believe we need to review the guidelines for that reason. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, let's turn to the applicant's representative, Mr. Thurman.
Good morning. Thank you all for your time and consideration, and thank you to staff for the detailed report. It was great to see. My name is Will Thurman. I'm the developer. I work for Davis Hill Development. We're a community solar and commercial industrial solar developer, owner, and operator. I think the only thing I'd like to say is this project helps advance the Prince George County Plan 2020 or 2035, I apologize, which encourages investments in generation of clean renewable energy. And just like to say that we agree with the staff recommendations and we'll implement those along the way.
Thank you. Mr. Thurman, there's a Cord Briggs with Aurora Energy. Is this person part of your team and wants to speak as well?
He is our EPC partner of the project. I believe he is on the line. I'm not sure if he has anything he would like to say, but.
Mr. Briggs, no need unless there's something that is helpful, but we'll want to afford you the opportunity if you'd like. If you're speaking, you're on mute.
I was just going to respond on the soils that the majority of the solar array is on class 3 soil with some on class 2, small amount.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any more questions for the applicant? Any more questions for staff? If not, we have no one else who signed up to speak on this. I'll close the public hearing. And colleagues, what is your pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt staff's recommendations and approve transmittal of MRF-2025-003 to the applicant, Aurora Energy.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. With no discussion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you, staff, very much. Mr. Thurman, thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Move on to item 8 on our agenda. This is preliminary plan of subdivision 4-24013 Saddle Ridge. We have Mr. Tedesco representing the applicant. This is a request for a continuance. And Mr. Bartlett, beginning the staff presentation. We do have folks who've signed up to speak. I'm not sure if they've signed up to speak related to the request for a continuance, but we'll see what happens when we get to that point. Start with Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I'm Jason Bartlett with the subdivision section. Item number 8 on the agenda is a preliminary plan of subdivision for Saddle Ridge, case number 2-4-24013. The subject project proposes 783 lots and 107 parcels for residential development consisting of 534 single-family detached and 252 single-family attached dwellings. In a letter dated May 8, 2025, the applicant requested a continuance of this case to July 10, 2025 to allow the applicant and staff additional time to evaluate adequate public facilities, which must be determined prior to approval of the preliminary plan of subdivision. As a matter of housekeeping, the planning board received 3 letters from residents of the surrounding community expressing opposition to the approval of this preliminary plan. However, these letters are not material to the continuance and will be discussed at the July 10th hearing for the preliminary plan subdivision should this continuance be granted. If the continuance is granted, additional posting will not be required. The notices of public hearing signs for this application were posted on the subject site on May 6, 2025. This concludes staff's presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. No questions for staff. Mr. Tedesco, anything you want to add?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Matthew Tedesco with the law firm of McNamee Hosey and Greenbelt. Here on behalf of the applicant, D.R. Horton Incorporated, we would submit on our May 8th letter and respectfully request the approval of the continuance to July 10th. And we look forward to hopefully bringing this case back before you at that date with all issues resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tedesco. If there's no questions for the applicant, we do have 2 folks signed up to speak, Mr. Calhoun, Ms. Brown. Are either of you on the line?
No.
Okay. All right. Then with that, colleagues, what's your pleasure on this request for a continuance?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the applicant's request to continue preliminary plan 4-24013 to planning board hearing date of July 10, 2025.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. With no discussion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner
I
Washington.
vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye, Mr. Chair.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Tedesco, Mr. Bartlett. I believe this concludes all items for the day. Ms. Connor, any further business before us?
No further business. Thank you.
Okay, then that, colleagues, without objection, we are adjourned.
Thank you.